Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Blake, I got a thought for you today, and It's something I discuss with a lot of people. It's not a profound thought or anything because we're going to talk a little bit about National Signing Day coming up out of the break. I remember back when signing day was such an exciting part of the college football calendar.
Yes.
Even the early signing period day that is taken over this February National Signing Day doesn't have the same shine, the same excitement that it used to.
It was a snoozer.
It feels so weird. It feels so weird more and more how much this has completely lost its energy.
I'm going to give Jake Cram this credit because of the fact I saw him say it first, okay, and then that way people don't think I'm stealing his take. But it's true. We've talked about this before actually on this show, but just, I don't want to get into what people, you took that. But he said today, National Signing Day literally has just been moved. We just refuse to call it what it is. Today's the deadline.
Right.
Like, that's what it really is. Like, today's your deadline. The signing day's been moved. So maybe as an industry, we need to move and say, hey, signing day is today, instead of just acting like it was in February. Here's the thing. With today's world, the way that it is, I don't like the signing day in February at all. I don't like it.
You prefer December?
I prefer December or January. But January, you will have teams in the playoffs. So you would have to do it later in January. But here's the problem. Joe, look at how many kids are enrolling early for spring classes in spring.
Right.
I mean, at most institutions, there's around 6 to 9, sometimes double-digit kids. So almost half of your class that's already coming in and enrolling. And I'm like, we're not talking about signing early anymore. We're talking about them coming in playing spring football now. Like, this isn't – kids are missing prom to be here.
Prom's overrated. Go play some football. I would
BS. You must have had a lame-ass prom.
My prom was fine. I would have much rather have been playing football.
Okay, well –
looking back at it now, I had far better memories playing football than I did.
Oh, without a doubt. But if you got
senior prom.
If you like Pretty Ricky and you got a new boo on your side, you got to be out there styling and profiling, baby. People got to know. See, as
a 20-year-old, as a 26-year-old, I look back at that and I think it would have been so much cooler to have been on campus.
I tore my ACL. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to say any college party that would have been the same exact weekend as an early enrolled high schooler. Give me that over going to senior prom.
I will admit. I was talking about this with somebody today. My friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media. Yeah. And I was like, bro, you do realize that, like, I know every back alley downtown where we're at, mainly due to the fact that I've gotten drunk at every single bar that's literally in a 17-mile radius.
Oh my God.
Like every single one of them. So, but yeah, I'm with you. College parties are much more fun, but I think we just need to finalize what actually real signing day is. Now, there are some uncommitted guys, and good. When they commit and they hit the deadline, let's talk about them. And we'll talk about Texas and Michigan today in that. The only thing that I will say here is this. It's not – I don't mind it. It's one thing that I don't mind necessarily. Now, I'm sure coaches will disagree on that. And, look, I talked to a couple of them. They hate signing day being in December. But I'm telling you, you're going to hate. You know what else you're going to hate? Let me tell you what you're really going to hate. When it's February, the month before spring football starts, and you're out there grinding and recruiting to finalize things, and then football starts. By the way, you have a whole new group of kids that you already got enrolled. I think you got to keep it in December, if I'm being honest. I know that a lot of people won't agree with that, but that's just how I feel.
Well, the inverse argument there, I think a lot of coaches that are in the playoff hunt and that are finishing the season strong are going to want their attention to be mainly focused on competing in the playoff.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. Let's go through it right quick. You ready? Texas made the playoff. Georgia made the playoff. Oregon made the playoff. Ohio State made the playoff. Tennessee.
Oh wait, just because all of those teams finished with top recruiting classes, I don't think that if you asked any of the coaches on that staff that were handling recruiting, I think that most of them would agree. I really wish that I was doing this later on and I wasn't
but
doing both these things at the same time.
I'm with you. But here's also a truth too that I want to make it very well known. A lot of you are paid in the millions of dollars a year with $1 million buyouts. I'm sorry. I love coaches, but I hear coaches complain about X, Y, and Z. There's no coordinator on any of this list of guys in the top 10 that don't make over $1 million. None of them. None of them. Like, Joe, you're talking about realistically, okay, $80K a month. Spare me on I work too much.
That's not what I'm getting at, though. I'm just saying that the ability to pay attention to both things and to be able to focus intently on recruiting and focus intently on game planning. I mean, just to throw this out there, though, selfishly, I wish that signing day only existed in February. But you want to know why?
Why?
Because we'd have more shit to talk about in February. We'd have a whole day and a week lead up to talking about and covering it. Instead, we're trying to cover in December while the playoffs going on, while the transfer portal's going on, and knowing what's happening in recruiting. So that's like where I look at that from that lens. I think it's not a bad thing.
So that we get views and get paid.
But you're right. It's a little bit, that's obviously the positive, but separately, just like the coaches would like to give their undivided attention to recruiting, I would like to give my undivided attention to recruiting and to be able to cover the important recruiting news, but we don't really get to do it. We just kind of jam it into one day. I mean, shit, when the early signing period happened, I'm not happy to admit this. It's not going to happen going forward because I'm no longer working as a producer, but because we were so busy during the season, I didn't even know that when signing day was. I texted you the day of and I said, shit, I forgot signing days today. We need to cover this on today's show. So I don't know. I don't think it's too much.
Name a top recruit in the country when it was all said and done didn't come down to money.
No, that's a good point. Most of all of them came down to money.
That's why you have front offices. You get the kids committed. The front office is supposed to work out those details. By the way, I don't know if you've been noticing this. Have you been seeing some of these teams in the Big Ten and the SEC making real front offices?
Yeah, a lot of them are.
I'm not, Joe. Like, let's throw it out there. They're about to literally spend. Colleges are literally about to spend $5 to $10 million just in front office pay now. That's starting to get a little insane. So,
it's justified. All these teams need to have a general manager.
We were talking about this last week.
Yeah,
with Notre Dame potentially hiring a GM and looking for one. And Joe, it's where the sport is going. Here's what I'll throw out there. You only do that if you think something's coming down the road, but you can't go public with it. I don't think that this is I don't think that this is going on with front offices if ADs and people around the country don't have an idea of throwing out a random understanding, collective bargaining agreement, right? Meaning there are going to be some funds that you can allocate and to do this that probably you wouldn't have been able to do in the past.
So to directly address that is why these front offices are being built out, is because as soon as the House case, which we're coming up really close on it being finalized, the revenue share part is that first step, and there is a belief that collective bargaining is next. Now that the revenue sharing is out there, athletic departments know that they need people to manage these things. It can't just be the coaching staff that is handling pay allotment. They need an actual staff that's crunching the numbers, knowing what's fair market value, knowing what makes sense to give to certain players in certain situations, for how long, to put together these contracts. It's part of the Xavier Lucas thing. They're trying to have multi-year contracts that are put together by these front offices to lock these guys into certain amounts for certain periods of time. So the front office part is 1000% for what you just said. It is because they need to be as prepared as possible. Any team that is not putting together a front office is behind, and they're going to be effed. They're going to be completely effed.
I completely agree. One final thing before we get to a break here. I did want to talk about this. Yeah, I know that we're not spending any time on this other than this statement, because I'll be live at 7, and I promise you I'm going nuclear, okay? Brian Kelly has been in the headlines, I guess you will. Start on Monday with Good Morning America and Greg Brooks, who had a brain tumor, one of the very rare brain tumors that you could get. I'll just leave it. I'm not going to go there. I want to say this because I've seen some comments that people watch this show that have been directing them towards me. I've been addressing it all week, but I'll do it here just so nobody says I'm backing off of it.
Okay.
I cover the team. Joe, last January, not this January, but last January, I started doing this full time, right? Like there's nothing else that I do. There's no press conference I miss. There's no player interview that I miss. There's no game that I miss. Ever. I lived this situation with Greg Brooks. I know for a fact, and I know that you can attest to this, Joe, because we talked about it, and we have the proof if it ever came down to it. The stuff out there about Brian Kelly right now and Greg Brooks, about him not being there for him, is BS. It, quite frankly, is total BS. Now, I will say this. Do I bet that communication stopped when Brian Kelly got sued? You're damn right it did. You're damn right it did. Like, what are we discussing here? Joe, if something happened to you and me and you were together, like going out to have dinner or something, like talking about the show, and God forbid something happened to you, okay, and your family sues me, guess what? I'm not talking to your family.
Right.
Why would I do that? It is idiotic. I think what happens here is, number one, a lot of people don't like him, but number two, the incident that happened at Notre Dame, people live and learn. Now, I have been at press conferences, literally sitting in press conferences, where he's 30 minutes late because he's coming from the hospital. So what are we trying to do here? I think that it was a very bad narrative that was spinned by Good Morning America, that not all the facts were given. And that is a shame. So the people that were crying wolf yesterday, because there were a lot of them calling him an asshole, you look like a dumbass today. You look like a dumbass because this in and of itself, Joe, we're talking about something here. You can say I'm defending Brian Kelly. I'm simping for him, is what a lot of Notre Dame fans have been telling me over the last 48 hours. No. Like there comes a point in time where things are right and wrong. I have ridiculed that university when I thought I've needed to. I've done it to him. But there comes a point in time, too, where, like, bro, a kid had a rare form of brain cancer. The only thing that should be happening is everybody rallying together and making sure that his quality of life is elevated every single day. That's it.
I don't have the same level of context that you have, so I know that there's going to be listeners of the show that expect me to come on here and shit on Brian Kelly. So I don't have the context to counter your comments. No, right. There's none. That's the point.
I mean,
I don't think
the kid got a brain tumor.
Yes.
Surgery did not go correctly. Yes. He's not the doctor.
What I was going to say, though, is it's not fair in this situation. And I hope that Notre Dame fans understand this. It's not fair to accuse Brian Kelly of anything. It's not fair on both sides because we don't know, and we were not in the room. We were not a part of these interactions. We just don't know fully, truthfully. We're talking about an upset parent that is going to react the way that he is because of a serious situation with his son. And I think that's as far as it goes. And you're going to have a lot more information than I do. And I know that you're going to give a really great response on your show on AYS, and you're going to be able to unfold a lot of that information. But my only main takeaway from this is it sucks. I had a friend of mine who was interested in representing him as a draft prospect, and I had talked to him throughout this process, like as news, more and more of it came up about his health situation, and it's just brutal. Like you think about the biggest casualty in all this is Greg Jr. You know, it's him who's going through the hardship, and now it's being spun. You know, it's being spun on either direction. Just hope his recovery goes well. That's where my main attention is.
The problem that I have, and it's the only, I guess, political statement I will ever make. This is the problem with America. Like
overreaction without listening and trying to get all the information.
Okay. You literally put in all the information in the beginning of the video. Great on you. Let's go help Greg. And then the last 3 minutes of it was complete fabrications and things that are taken out of context. Completely. And that's the part where I'm saying, yes, the kid that was on the scissors and died at Notre Dame, that is unfortunate. I'm sure Brian Kelly feels the same exact way. Probably feels a little bit different than you do about the situation, even if you like him or don't. But there comes a fact where, Joe, the kid had a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, like if it were a situation where Brian Kelly, the kid had knee pain, and he threw him out there and said, tough it out, you need to go out there. He was a high draft pick and got hurt. Okay, well, there's not a lot I can say about that. A brain tumor? Like that's come on.
Right.
Anyway, all right. We'll come back and talk signing day, or how about this? We'll come back and talk about the deadline.
There we go. That's a better way to put it.
There we go. We took our own advice here. We'll come back and talk about the Big 12, Arizona State, Colorado. They're going to. So we'll get to that then. Okay. So, Joe, the signing deadline period was today. I'm not going to keep calling it National Signing Day. And there's a couple of topics that you and I wanted to address. Number one, we wanted to get to Michigan and the strong finish they had, not only in recruiting, but at the end of the year too. But you had mentioned something to me. I did not know this going into the show, but we were going to talk about Texas. For the first time in over 20 years, the Texas Longhorns in with the number 1 overall class in the country. Joe, let's start off with them. What if I told you a year ago today they were in the mid to high 20s when it came to their recruiting ranking? What if I told you this in the beginning of the season they were 19th in recruiting when it came to recruiting rankings? So in between the months of August and December, when the early signing period happened, during the season, I might add, the Texas Longhorns jumped that high, signing five five-star recruits and ended number 1. Your thoughts on what Sark and the guys are building over in Austin?
Yeah, we already spoke super highly about this Texas team and the recruiting efforts that they had during the original signing period, but I think it's just reiterated now that this is finalized. There's always that chance that maybe guys change their mind if they're not fully signed. Not the case here for Texas. There's so much attention that needs to deservedly go towards the Longhorns, and more specifically Steve Sarkisian, and the way that he has gradually, year by year, elevated this team. There was, I would argue, quite a bit of uncertainty from the outside world on if Steve Sarkisian would work at Texas. Knowing his failures and off-the-field issues that had impacted his ability to be a coordinator, to be a head coach, all of those things to where he is now. This team has produced a quality product multiple times over the past couple of years. They have developed a lot of guys to turn them into premier NFL draft prospects. And now I think it comes to full fruition where they're in the mix to finish in the top 3. And even further than that, finishing with the top class on all major sites for the first time in 20 years. They led with 5 five-star signees. That is exactly how you go from being a team that just misses out, loses in the semifinal, to winning a national championship. That's where the separation is. That is what Georgia needed to do. That's what Alabama was able to do so successfully in consecutive year-over-year situations that they were able to constantly get back there. LSU to win national titles, to be recruiting at the top, and to finish with top classes. Finishing with that many 5 stars and knowing that you're able to develop those guys into premier playmakers and get early contributions from them, that is what is going to help Texas eventually win a national championship.
Well, it's not missed upon me that Georgia finished at number 2. Stay with me. Justice Terry flipped.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're talking about who would have been 1 and 2 was him. Because, right. So you're talking about Justice Terry in that scenario. So not only did they get Elijah Griffin, meaning Georgia, and Isaiah Gibson and others for that defense, but Georgia normally would go a clean sweep, right? They would go a complete clean sweep, and that would be how Kirby continued to dominate defensively, like he always does. But then Justice Terry flipped, and then you had a new number 1. Joe, how about this? Not only did you sign the number 1 overall class, 22 of those players are enrolled. 22.
That's nuts.
So when you look at Texas, and that's per On3, just in case anybody wants to go and check it. You can go check it out there. But think about this. You got Jonah Williams, who can play safety. You bring in Justice Terry, who we just talked about. Lance Jackson. Joe, they need edge presence. Could Lance Jackson do some of the same stuff that Colin Simmons literally did for Texas a year ago? What do we always talk about? You win on the line of scrimmage and up the middle defensively. You win on the line of scrimmage and up the middle offensively, and how you run the football and how you dominate on both sides of the ball. That's how teams will continue to win championships. You're right. You're 1,000% right. When you go out there and you dominate on one side of the ball the way that they did, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of their top recruits are defensively. What did they need to go and replenish? Defense. Oh, and by the way, they got Jamie French in there too. One of the top receivers in the country, also enrolled. You went and did what you needed to do. And what's even crazier, their class could have been better and bigger if you don't miss out on the Decorian Moore and others. That's where the little bit of parity comes here too when we talk about how are things so close. Normally that kid would have gone to Texas or Texas A&M or LSU, wherever he would have gone, but he goes to Oregon. I think there's something to be said here, though, and even mentioning all of that when it comes to recruiting, especially with Sark. Look, man, it's on now. I mean, you can't go into an offseason not talking about them being a high contender to win a natty. Not anymore. At least not in this offseason. They finished the last 2 years in the top 4. They've been recruiting in the top 5. They finally hit that hump. And, Joe, they flipped 2 big guys at the end there. 5-star Cade Phillips, who was committed to LSU, he flips to Texas there at the end on signing day, on the early signing day period. So they have gone out there, and what we thought about Texas at all times when NIL was enacted was what? Man, they're going to be able to buy whoever they want. And I'm not saying that happened here necessarily, but, Joe, they did. But they did it, by the way, in being smart. They went and got their guys. They didn't Texas A&M this thing, remember, a couple of years ago with Jimbo.
Right.
They went out there and got dudes that they knew that could come in there and play for their system. Joe, the truth is, when you look at Texas and Sark right now, the top guys that they're getting, Colin Simmons and others, Anthony Hill and others, what do all of them have in common? They're hitting on all of these 5-stars. See, some of these 5-stars come in, and it takes them a little bit while to go in and things like that. Joe, name one. Name one that they're not bringing in that at some point is not a key contributor in the very beginning of all this stuff.
Well, that was a big issue too, and it goes in line with what I just brought up a second ago. A big issue pre-Sark was that they would bring in 5-star guys
and miss.
They wouldn't finish in the top number 1 spot in recruiting classes, but they would be able to sign some of these. Like one guy that comes to mind, Caden Stearns. I remember he was he was a big time 5-star guy, and these guys wouldn't develop. That was the big issue, that these guys weren't contributing and developing to the point where they would go on to be 1st round, 2nd round picks. That's what the difference is right now. That's what I think feels so starkly different for Steve Sarkisian, is that not only is he encouraging and recruiting the right guys to come play for him, but he's picking the guys that can play early, and he's helping those guys get better year over year. Kelvin Banks is like a great example of a guy who started as a true freshman, one of his earliest commits, and then he goes on to now being likely the first tackle selected, if not one of the top 3 tackles selected in the 2025.
Going to be the top tackle selected.
Well, Campbell's not going to be the top tackle selected. Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons is going to be the top tackle selected, but it plays into the point that I'm making here.
No.
And it's going to be even crazier in the next 2 drafts with Colin Simmons, with Wingo, and Anthony Hill.
There's going to be 2 years.
Simmons got 2 years. Anthony Hill is going to probably be a 1st-round guy next year with how freaking fast he is as a linebacker.
Look, here's another thing. Derek Williams. I mean, how good would that safety room have been if Derek Williams doesn't go out early in the season with an ACL injury?
Yeah.
They are recruiting their asses off. Joe, they don't really go in the portal unless they got to now. I mean, this is what you thought a Texas school would look like with all of that money. They're doing exactly what they need to do. I'll say this, though. With high recruiting comes high responsibilities. When you finish on one of these rankings at number 1, God forbid you do it again, Fans are going to say I'm crazy, but I've lived it. You better get over that hump now. There's no more Final Fours anymore. There's no more saying that you don't have the talent. You have to now win it. So the pressure is on. Not that it wasn't already on, but the pressure is now really on when you finish with a class like that. Joe, another team that we need to talk about is the Michigan Wolverines here. Listen, I am enamored by Michigan and what Sharon Moore has done on and off the field. Not talking about the allegation stuff. We're not going back to that. But on and off the field, I'm enamored by what they did to finish the season. And not only that, even with the big tackle today, I mean, they finished strong in recruiting.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to respond. I kind of feel like Michigan is a little bit back on track when it comes to the football actual side of things.
We heavily hyped up this Michigan recruiting class on the early signing period because of them going and getting Bryce Underwood, them also signing guys like Andrew Babalola, Shamari Earls, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. There were a lot of big-name guys, 5 stars that they were able to attract and to bring in this year. And it all, of course, starts with Underwood. But them finishing things off by getting one of the highest-ranked tackles, a 4-star in Ty Haywood, is a really strong way for Sharon Moore to finish this thing. Especially, this is the craziest part about all this. Last offseason, right around this time, and the whole entire offseason, going into the 2024 year, we were talking about, and every other show was talking about, what the hell is Sharon Moore doing? This recruiting class that he has for 2025 is awful. He doesn't have anybody. There's no commitment. There's no guys. He hasn't been recruiting at all. They were so focused on winning a national championship that they didn't bother to recruit. They didn't have a class. They literally did not have a recruiting class. So for them to finish as high as they did and as strong as they did, to go as far in the final, before the final whistle blew, to get one more guy, the highest ranked uncommitted kid in Ty Haywood, I think really sums up these efforts and these improvements for not only Sharon Moore, but the NIL efforts that are going towards this.
Well, look, and it's not like that he didn't have all the big boys recruiting him either, right? Here's the thing with Michigan that I think is a little bit different. There's 2 things that are happening at the same time. I think that once they won a national title and word came out clearly, hey, man, if we want to stop being like this, we need to go get a quarterback, and there's one in our state. Larry Ellison did what he had to do. Let's call it what it is. One of the, arguably, I think, was he the top 5 richest man in the world?
Yeah,
wife is a Michigan alum. You going to tell me that this, like, it's only Bryce Underwood that this is happening for? I call bullshit. I vastly call bullshit, because once you go to that well once, you're going to keep going to that well. And let me just tell you this, it's not going to stop here. Now that they've got a taste of it, and God forbid Bryce Underwood comes into Michigan and starts balling, chalk calling, 20-inch blades on the Impala getting laid tonight like it's a mid-2000s rap song, okay? I'm telling you, you see it, I see it, everybody sees it. When teams start going out there and spending money and they go in and they start dominating in recruiting, they don't stop now. So what's interesting with me about Michigan, I think you brought in a great class, and I'm not saying that you didn't. You got arguably the freakiest kid and all of the recruits, and that being Bryce Underwood. You went out and got other guys. You talked about Ty Haywood today being the top uncommitted guy. He's not the only one. You talked about Babalola, but Nate Marshall, the edge guy. I mean, that he screams Michigan to me. He screams Michigan into me. So I think that since Michigan has gotten over the hump, okay, I feel a different sense about how they go about things. You know, in the early Harbaugh days, I felt as if that it was like, yeah, Michigan's a big brand. They ain't ever getting no damn playoff. You knew the vibe around Michigan. Man, they got in that Final Four and some shit started happening that was a little bit different around there. Take out all the Connor Stallions BS for just a moment. Let's take it out and look at them and what they're going to be as a program. Okay, they took a step back after a national championship run and a bunch of coaching staff changes. Could say the same exact thing about Alabama, who they played in a bowl game. So there are two different comparisons that you can make here that might fit a line a little bit. Those two teams played in the playoff too. So the only thing that I could think about today when I'm thinking about Michigan, it's not that we haven't seen this before. We see it every year. We see it when generational guys, and I call Harbaugh generational in this sense for them because it's not often that they win a natty. The way they finish on the field, to me, I see alignment. And I know coaches like to use that word, but I see alignment. But more than alignment, I see buy-in. And if there's a title for this, if there's a title for what I see at Michigan right now from a football perspective, Joe, everybody's bought in. 1-800-Larry Ellison. That is the number one contact on Sharon Moore's, maybe his wife. I don't know. But you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Having that financial boost is obviously important. And I think it's kind of funny to consider though that like there's other possible billionaires that are going to be contributing money to some of these programs. Like Indiana, by the way, quietly has been discussed about how they're getting a lot of NIL contributions. So it's not getting as much pub as it probably should, but they have resources to eventually being talked about more and more in these coming years.
Michigan is proving to the country, and there are a couple other teams that are doing this too, but they are proving to the country this too. They're a part in this conversation. Ole Miss did it last year, but they did it in a different way. They can't recruit from a high school perspective. Well, I guess they can if they wanted to spend the money, but they're not. It's different. And I promise you, look around the country, that teams that have been surprising. Joe, who are they? Who are they? And what are they all doing? I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. The toothpaste is out of the tube on how things are being done here.
Outside of the NIL aspect of this, though, the thing why I was super hyped up about Sharon Moore taking this job and why I was one of the earliest pushers for him to take over for Harbaugh.
Brian Kelly didn't go to Michigan?
Okay. That was never anything that I brought up. And I know that was a random rumor that had been thrown out there by some people. But as soon as Harbaugh left and before he even left, I was pushing for Sharon Moore. And I just felt like that there was naturally going to be that buy-in from the team. And despite the season being tumultuous and inconsistent with the results on the field, I never really felt worried. It didn't scream to me, hey, this team is going to be a mess and Sharon Moore is going to be gone in a couple of years. It just didn't feel like that. It just felt like
started off rocky.
It started off rocky. It felt like a team that had talent that was also extremely devoid of key contributors at important positions, especially a quarterback, that was holding him back. That Sharon Moore was eventually going to figure this thing out. The way that they finished in recruiting, the way that they finished on the field is the biggest signal to me that, hey, Sharon Moore is going to eventually get this team in the playoff. He's going to get them back on a recurring basis to the playoff because of that buy-in from the roster and the way that they fought during the bowl game. Last bit too is just knowing the way that they're recruiting, emphasizing. I always get like super locked in on if you are able to structure your recruiting classes around the line of scrimmage, that's how I know you're going to have a good team, because you're bringing in 1 to 2 top tackles, 1 to 2 defensive linemen that are the top in the class. That is how you eventually build a national championship caliber team. And that's what they did originally.
And look, there was something that came out today about Kirby Smart. Speaking of this, and I'll tie it back to Michigan here. This was a quote from a coach inside of the SEC. Georgia got some steals. Kirby really leaned into some old school stuff and getting guys to come at a discount, saying that you're going to make the money because I'm going to get you in the top 10. I mean, and I'm assuming he means picks. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, man, it's all about getting dudes. And I think that Michigan got some clearly. Interesting to see what they do in some positions, though. I mean, every one of these classes have their issues, but it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to roll here. All right, let's do this. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy before we get to the Big 12. The Super Bowl is here, my man, so you got a lot of picks you need to get to.
Yeah, make sure you head on over to Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code AYS, and you can get free picks in up to $100,000 in bonus cash. Now, I talked about last week, or not last week, last show, on where I'm going to go, what direction I'm going to go for Saquon Barkley's rushing yards. I got another one that I think I'm going to take here. I really like the idea of Patrick Mahomes under 250 passing yards.
Don't do it.
Going
Don't
lower. Again, I keep bringing up their higher or lower game that they do. Lower than 250 passing yards. They're going up against a great secondary. I think he's going to have not that same level of production. And you should go, if you disagree with me, use that code AYS and put your own pick in. Use promo code AYS. Like I said, head on over to Underdog Fantasy.
Our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy, always making some things happen. All right, Joe, let's turn to the Big 12 here. So we've been doing our way too early, not really conference breakdowns here, right? Like, I mean, we've kind of selecting some teams that we're keeping our eye on. Obviously, we're going to do all these P4 conferences here. Tonight we end with the Big 12. And I don't think you can start off by talking the Big 12 without talking about the playoff runner and the team that almost knocked off Texas on New Year's Day, that being Arizona State. Joe, when you look in the early Big 12, is Arizona State with Dillingham and the boys coming back, and there's a lot of pieces coming back, are they the front runners to make a move here in the Big 12 and win the conference outright again?
Absolutely. And I think that the reason why that you're going to have optimism and excitement for what Arizona State can do is that they bring back the best young quarterback in the conference. And I know Caden Salter's got to suit up still, and he hasn't played in the Big 12 yet, so that's a different conversation, which we're going to get to in a second. Sam Leavitt is a very gifted player, and he's somebody who got me super juiced up watching the way that he played in the Big 12 championship game, the way that he played against Texas in the college football playoff. I see the traits. I see the tools. He is a great athlete. He's got a strong arm. He's an aggressive decision maker. Rookie mistakes is the only thing that held him back. This is a young prospect that is only going to get better on a team that is led by the best young coach in the sport. He's one of the youngest coaches. He actually might even still be the youngest coach in college football, head coach. The way that he brings the energy, the way that he rallies the troops to fight every single week when they were picked to be in last year, it's extremely recognizable. The only real main guy that they're losing is Cam Scadaboo, which is a huge loss. It's a very big loss. He was all of their offensive production practically in those two big games that I mentioned. But there is a different kind of progression that happens when you start to build your offense around a quarterback. And you're not just building it around a singular game-wrecking running back. I think that there's going to be a different version of this Arizona State team with Leavitt, Jordan Tyson, his top receiver, coming back. Such a high ceiling for what they can do.
And look, Leavitt, for what it's worth, I thought under immense pressure. Now, he had the interception in the game. The kid's a freshman. Like, I mean, come on. But what he showed under pressure, getting literal pressure, getting away from guys like Colin Simmons, getting away from guys like Anthony Hill, making some of those moves that he did against Texas, seeing how the team was without him during the season. Joe, I gotta be real with you. I'm with you on him. I don't know if I go as far as to say what we've seen in some of these projections that he's the number one quarterback in the country returning.
It's a little too much.
I cannot go there. But I want to mention this. Look, man, Cam Scadaboo was a lot for them now. Like it's not as if that like you're losing just a great back. Like I don't know how to say this without this kind of coming out and saying it. I'm not saying that Cam Scadaboo is better than Ashton Jeanty at all. But let's look at the last 3 touchdowns that Arizona State scored against Texas. Rushing touchdowns, Cam Scadaboo. Receiving touchdown, Cam Scadaboo. Halfback toss pass, Cam Scadaboo, touchdown. I mean, Joe, in the second half when they made their emergence, Cam Scadaboo had over 75% of the production, whether it be receiving, whether it be rushing, or whether it be passing. I understand that Leavitt Dillingham hit a home run and bringing that kid in. I do think that missing a kid like that in Scadaboo is a big deal, right? Like when you lean on your superstar that much and he gives you that much production, I'm not saying you can't be good. All I would say is that, number one, you're right, it's going to be different, but I got to see it go into fruition first. You still had some mess ups throughout the season. I feel like for these teams, when we go into the offseason, the way that Arizona State finishes the season, we don't really talk about what they have to replace. Defensively, too, Joe, they got to be better. They have to be better defensively. I know that they were able to stop the run in moments against a couple of teams in the playoffs, but, man, throughout the season, you got ran on. And that's why you were, at least per teamstatrankings.com, why you were 80th in the country, or whatever that website is.
Team rankings.
Team rankings. Okay. At 80th last year in the country. I mean, you got to be better there. What is your end goal? And I think that Dillingham can continue to build there and make them a Big 12 power, but there's a lot that you're going to have to overcome and get questions on here.
Yeah, the big part is in the trenches. Like that's where the improvement needs to be had. They still had some strong performances stopping the run, and they did it against Texas. But can you produce a team that's going to be physical up front? Like, that's how you go on and win playoff games. It's hard to attract premier offensive defensive linemen in the Big 12. It's just difficult. A lot of those guys end up in the SEC and the Big 10 and even in the ACC these days. But if they can start to develop and have just better, more stouter units overall and have one of the best ones in the Big 12, that's how they continue to make those progressions. But the thing that just excites me overall the most is the IDing of talent. You know, that's what Kenny Dillingham was able to do here with Scadaboo and with Levitt. Levitt was coming from Michigan State, was not even like super highly touted, and we almost didn't even think he was going to start this year with Rashada coming back before he entered his name into the portal super late. Nobody had any expectation that kid was going to go out there and do anything. And then on top of this, Scadaboo comes in as a running back from Sac State, where he was the second running back to Marcus Fulcher when he was at Sac State. He transforms this guy who had some good production into one of the most productive running backs in the country this year. So for him to be able to, in that front office, that team, to ID the talent, and then for Dillingham to unlock the talent, to get that much out of him, is the proof to me that this team is trending in the right direction. I'm not wait and see mode, but I hope that they capitalize on this year of taking that next step forward.
I mean, they have to some extent, not to the place that I think that most would expect. I look at them in the portal, and I want to address this too when we talk about them. They went out and got Breedlove from Purdue and Green from Purdue, two corners that I think that can help them. They did get Jaron Hamilton, the wide receiver. They did go Jamon Tapp, who, I mean, I think, you know, even might go back in the portal and come back. I don't know the situation there. But look, they went out and got some guys. They got the running back, not Liberty, but Garner from the D lineman too from Oregon. So there've been some guys that they brought in from the portal too. But again, I'm with you on the last statement that you made. Look, man, Scadaboo was everything for you, man. I mean, Levitt can make some plays, and he's got some weapons on the outside. I mean, it's just, I feel like it's a lot to overcome. But
yeah.
But again, I say that. What do you want to do? Do you just want to keep winning the Big 12 and get to the playoff? If that is your goal, I think that you could arguably be in that conversation. But the goal should be to get a little bit better, and I guess we'll see if they do.
Yeah. There's a lot more work that needs to be done, but they have competition, knowing that what Coach Prime is doing over at Colorado.
Glad you brought that up, because that's where I was going next. Joe, Coach Prime goes into year 3 at Colorado, this time without his son at safety and his son at quarterback. It's his first time that we've really, really, really truthfully started seeing him without Travis Hunter. But it's not as if that Coach Prime did not go back in the portal, getting quarterbacks like Caden Salter, getting Juju Lewis in from the freshman class and hitting the portal the way that he has been. Joe, I do think that Colorado did some things unthinkable last year in reference to, I don't think people believed that they would get to that many wins in the regular season, but they did. Is Prime about to do something that not a lot of people are going to really think about. And year 3, can he get his team over the hump to win the Big 12 and win the conference and potentially make a playoff?
Well, that's the biggest thing that we've talked about in – I know at times Colorado fans had thought that, like, last offseason when we said this team's probably not going to win the conference, that was a negative approach. It wasn't. The pitch that I had made is that they can win 8 or 9 games. If the improvement comes that we're expecting and hoping for, they could win 8 or 9 games. They did that. They had a really strong finish to the season. Well, not great because they lost to Kansas and they lost to BYU, but they had a lot of really nice, strong wins in the Big 12.
Didn't have the depth.
And Travis Hunter has an unreal season, and you win a Heisman, and it makes recruiting even easier for you going forward. And they have a very unique approach to it, and bringing in the right guys that are there to play for, their system and their style of development, and getting guys onto the field and how they approach the transfer portal. The next progression here, if we're getting this right, is for them to go on and win the Big 12. Now, it's going to be difficult losing Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, who are going to be first-round picks. Also losing LeJohntay Wester, Will Shepard, and Jimmy Horn Jr., who all 3 of those guys were top receivers in this offense. But I feel really good, one, seeing what they brought in the portal. We talked a lot about Jaheim Otis. That dude is unreal, and he could be a first-round pick depending on how he plays this upcoming season. And you and I both are very big fans of Caden Salter. I had wished Caden Salter had transferred sooner. I thought he wasted a year of his time at Liberty when a bunch of dudes left. He didn't have the same options to throw the ball to, and he had not as great of a year last year at Liberty as he did the prior
season. His entire team transferred.
He is going to pop off in the Big 12. Having much better resources around him and playing in an offense that I think is going to suit his skill set, he is going to have a great year in 2025. To me, the biggest defining aspect of their success, Blake, is how does Caden Salter play? It is going to flow through Caden Salter, and I have high hopes and high expectations that he will do well.
You know what's interesting? I was thinking about this today when we were going to talk about him. Are you going to change your philosophy now that your son's not a quarterback? Because, Joe, you better. And even if that's not the main reason, you can't be dead last in the country in rushing offense. Cannot happen. Now, you went out and you got a crap load of offensive linemen. You got a really big left tackle that you went and got from the high school ranks, started for you all year. You better start running that football. I don't care what conference it is. Joe, they're dead last. They're dead last in attempts. They're dead last in rushing. Or they were 133, 130th, whatever it was. They're in the 130s. Cannot happen. Cannot happen. So I think that Colorado, for what it's worth, I don't know if Coach Prime has had anybody, I'm sure he has, but somebody's got to get in his ear and say, listen, man, if you want to win this thing in this conference, you got to run the ball. Joe, they were god-awful. God-awful.
Okay, to directly address that, I think they're going to run the ball a lot better. And I know that is not really asking for a whole lot because they were so low down. I don't think that they're going to live and die off of just throwing the ball like they did this past year. I think that there is going to be a more capable commitment to running the ball. Because
we said that last year.
Wait. But the difference was the first year the offensive line was awful. The second year, the offensive line was improved, but it was still really, it was bad. This upcoming year, I think in year 3, and we both know this in having followed and seen enough college football, that it is a multi-year process of improving a team's offensive line. It is a step-by-step, year-by-year process. You can't Band-Aid fix this in the transfer portal. And one of the bigger reasons why I have optimism, and I've touted this kid multiple times, Isaiah Augustive. I really think that kid is a gifted running back. I thought he was going to dominate at Arkansas, and I think that he is in a position here in a conference that doesn't have a lot of good defensive lines, seeing how some of these other dudes had amazing years, Taj Brooks, Harvey, Scadaboo, Devin Neal, all those running backs who ran past a bunch of shaky, shitty defensive lines. I think Augustive could be that guy that's next up to have a huge year.
What teams clipped them or came close in doing it last year? What do all of them have in common? I mean, I can go to the first game of the season in North Dakota State. What?
They ran the ball.
They ran the ball right at them. Didn't North Dakota State, by the way, win the national championship in the FCS?
They did.
Okay. Like newsflash, like you better start running this football. Now, Joe, I got to see him do it. They didn't do it at Jackson State like that. They didn't run the ball like that. They didn't run it like that at Colorado. No, Joe, I'm sorry. You could be damn right. You could be 1,000% right that they're going to do it. I got to see it, brother. I 1,000% got to see it because it's been what they've done. You're not going to win anything if you don't do that. And by the way, I agree with you along the defensive line, going and getting Jaheim Otis. I think it's a massive deal. You got to steal there, an outright steal. How that kid is at Colorado, well, only NIL knows. But the bottom line remains, though, I get it, but we would not have, here's the truth, we would not be saying about, like he is going into year 3 now. Going into year 3, you've had 3 years to replenish that offensive line. I'm not calling for it to be perfect, but dead last in Big 12 in rushing.
Look, and I understand that like there's clear indication of how bad statistically they were, and we saw in games their inability to run the football was hurting them. It's going to be a different year. I know that is a very blind blanket statement. We're in February. I'm not going to
because Caden Salter's going to run it more.
Well, I think Caden Salter's going to run it more. Your best offensive lineman was a true freshman last year in Jordan Seaton. Jordan Seaton's going to get better. Him getting better elevates the rest of the group. I think that for how bad they've been, that offensive line, this is that next progression.
It better be, because look, they're going to be on the outside looking in. Again,
that is the deciding factor. I will admit that if they don't win the Big 12 again, it's going to be
Prime's gone.
No, stop it.
He's gone.
If they don't win the Big 12, you think that he's stop? Come on.
Yeah, I think he's gone no matter what.
No.
What do you mean
he's gone? Okay, elaborate on when you say
I think he's not going to be the next head coach of Colorado next year.
You don't think he's going to leave or he's going to get fired?
Yeah, I think he's going to leave. I do. Win, lose, or draw, I think he's gone.
Why are you so committed to him leaving?
Because I just don't think that he's going to stay there that long without his children.
Where is he going to go?
I don't know.
You think he goes to an SEC job?
No. He could, but no. I mean, Arkansas got money now.
They did consider hiring him the first time.
They considered hiring him the first time. I'm just saying, if he goes 9-3 again at Colorado, I'm telling you, he's gone. Either he's going to either have options and team's going to come not. Brother, literally the Dallas Cowboys because of Jerry did. I know that's
I don't think that was that legit of a.
There will be a team that will take.
But notice how he didn't leave though. If he wanted to put
the job,
wait, but if he really wanted to pursue, but this is what I'm saying that I don't think that he even wanted to do it. I think he took the conversation because I don't think he wanted to leave. If he really wanted the Cowboys job, he would have pushed it.
Where do you think Shedur's going to go?
I don't know. I'm kind of my projection on him is kind of simmering a little bit. I think he's a great player, but I think Cam Ward is just his arm is crazy.
Where do you think he goes? Like New York or? Where do you think
he's gonna go in the top 5? I think Cam Ward's gonna be the first overall pick. I probably the Giants or the Raiders are probably.
Let's stop at the Giants for just a moment.
Okay.
Let's say they don't do good again, and Dayball will probably be out, right?
Knowing the Maras and being a Giants fan, I don't think that they're the type of.
But they would draft his son.
They would draft Shedeur Sanders, but I don't think that they would go and hire Deion Sanders. I just don't think that they would.
What was the OC's name that slicked his hair back?
McAdoo.
They hired Ben McAdoo. They will.
This is my point.
They will hire Deion Sanders.
But this is but that's my point. The hire's not gonna. If I'm Deion Sanders, I don't want that job. I don't want that job. They don't handle hiring well. They don't set up guys for good resources and whatnot. I also don't think he wants to go to the NFL.
So basically what you're telling me is the fact that Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls there.
Tom Coughlin. That was because of Tom Coughlin.
He literally threw you a touchdown pass with 35 seconds
left.
No,
but my point is that notice how bad that team was as soon as Tom Coughlin was gone. That team has not recovered since Tom Coughlin left. And the intermediary between that of him and Bill Parcells, they were mediocre and awful.
You know what's interesting? Eli elevated a really shitty organization.
Why are you in on Eli like this?
Because number one, I love Eli Manning, and number two,
what do you mean a shitty organization? They had 2 Super Bowls to their name before that.
Because
they were in the 50s. They were one of the best franchises.
So in the last 20 years, you have more losing seasons than you do winning.
In the last 20 years, we have some of the best Super Bowl runs in the history of the NFL.
Yeah. You know who you are?
No, you got the Saints have how many Super Bowls?
They haven't been around as long.
It doesn't matter. They've got 1 total Super Bowl. The Giants have 4. This is no Notre Dame debate. This is no. Don't do this shit to me.
Why
this
are
is
you talking? Hold on. Why?
No. Because I know what you're trying to do.
I know that Sean is probably going to listen to this. The Falcons have none, so he can shut up. But
he's got nothing to say.
Okay. All I'm saying is, it is a shitty run organization.
No, it's not. Teams don't always have to be good. The Chiefs were dog shit for a while. The Chiefs were dog shit before Andy Reid took over, and then they drafted Patrick Mahomes. It's not the Patriots were awful before Bill Belichick.
New York Giants record history. All right, hold on.
Before we get out of here, they're one of the best franchises in the sport.
You've been around for 100 years. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 losing seasons in the last 25 years.
80% of wait. 80%. Wait.
You were 4
in the last 25 years.
Yeah, you were 4-12, 6-10. You were 8-8. I did count that one once, so sorry. So it might be 20. You were 7-9, 6-10, 6-10, 6-10, 6-10, 3-13, 5-11, 4-12, 6-10.
It's not supported because
you've had 1 winning season in the last decade. Hold on.
This isn't a situation that we're talking about here, Blake, of like, oh, when they're good, they get knocked out of the playoffs. They win Super Bowls.
Hold on.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this with you.
You have 1 winning season in the last decade, and you're going to tell me that it's not horribly run.
It hasn't been run well lately.
Okay.
They still have 4 Super Bowls.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It's an awful argument. It's an awful argument.
No, it's not.
It's a bad argument. They have 2 Super Bowls in the last.
Who are you picking in the Super Bowl, by the way?
I'm taking the Chiefs -1.
Taking the Chiefs too. We'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.